Hello everyone and welcome to the class of 20th Century Literature. I'm Dr. Shruti Rawal, Assistant Professor with the Department of English at St. Xavier's College, Jaipur. Today, we'll be talking about the different eras in 20th century literature. So let us start our class. First, let us look at the three different eras of this particular age. The first is the Edwardian and Georgian era. The second is the modern era. And the third is the postmodern era. Let us now closely look at the features and the timeline of these eras in detail. The first is the Edwardian and Georgian era that began in the last decade of 19th century and continued up to 1920s. The feature of this era include an interest in psychology. So the writers started exploring their own minds, which was reflected in the literature of the age too, and the human soul. Multiple genres and forms were being explored in this particular age. Realism, which was already a feature of 19th century literature when you read writers like Charles Dickens or Thomas Hardy, becomes a more vivid phenomena when you move to Edwardian and Georgian era, along with an element of psychological exploration that happened here and supernatural. That is, when you read the writings of Stevenson, you find this particular feature being reflected in their writings. The second is the modern era. It began in 1920s and continued till 1960s. The era was marked by a lot of experimentation that happened in both form and language. The literature became self-reflexive. The writers were not only looking at the world outside, which was influenced by so many socio-political changes, but also what happened in their or what was happening in their own mind, how the socio-political conditions were impacting their own psyche. This literature is highly complex when you read. That is because the writers do not follow linearity in timeline. Unlike the writers who were writing in 19th century that began traditionally with Once Upon a Time, here you have writers like James Joyce and Virginia Woolf who broke the traditions of writing and explored and experimented with new forms. The literature thereby became fragmented, that is broken. We are no longer looking at linearity in both structure and narration. The slogan of the modern writers were "Make it new," that represents all the features in short. Let us come to the third era, which is postmodern era, defined by this phenomena of postmodernism. The socio-political conditions of the world, they were changing too fast. There was rapid globalization that was happening. The boundaries of the nations were being broken. The world became a small village, and that was reflected in the kind of writings that came out. There was a consciousness of the impact of industrialization on the lower classes, and these economic inequalities were reflected in the literature of the era. There was mass migration, movement of people that was happening world over, sometimes because of political conditions, at other times due to personal or financial situations. They were concerned with history, not only national, but local and mythical also. Thereby, a lot of rereadings that were happening, reinterpretations that were happening, that continued to be explored in literature till date. So these were the three eras of 20th century literature that we looked at today. Thank you so much for joining us. In the coming classes, we'll explore in detail about the writers of these era. Thank you for joining us today.